Lately I've been trying to get better at creating community posts, but then I got into a giant rabbit hole about deep questions. So here we are. Today I will share with you a game-changing system for asking deeper questions. Number 1, personal values. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But here comes a big problem. Due to human errors wired in our brain, we tend to ask questions in a wrong way that only leads to superficial answers. These are the most common errors. A. The false dilemma. This is when you make it seem like there are only two choices, even though there are actually more. B. The confirmation bias. This happens when you ask questions in a way that pressures the other person to agree with you. C. The double-barreled question. This happens when you ask two questions at once, making it unclear which one should be answered. Now that you know these basic mistakes, it's time to find out how to consistently ask better questions about personal values. If someone tells you that they study medicine, don't ask a question like this. Instead, ask something like this. Focus on the little details. It will lead to more in-depth answers, but you won't get far if you aren't engaging. So during the conversation, sprinkle their name into your questions. Studies have shown that this boosts engagement by 34% compared to asking normal questions. After they answer, pause for 3 seconds. That's because silence often makes people reveal more, but you should also be concise. A study by Dr. Kylie Brosnan found out that the optimal range for a question is 12 to 14 words. This reduces mental effort and makes conversations flow more easily. Now, to move the conversation into a more personal state, you have to use Socratic questions. What are those? Questions that usually start with a why. This will help you move the conversation into number 2, emotional. In his book, The Art of Focused Conversation, Brian Stanfield introduced the ORID method. What is this exactly? A framework made of 4 stages designed to guide people during an emotional situation, and it begins with A, the objective stage. In this part, you have to understand the basics of the situation. For example, your friend tells you, "I broke up with my girlfriend." Which one do you think is the better response out of these two? Believe it or not, it's the second one. Christopher Voss, a former FBI negotiator, revealed that mirroring someone's last words results in a 67% increase in engagement. B. Reflective stage. In this part, it's important to understand how the other person feels. They might hesitate to respond since the topic is delicate. So what can you do? According to Dr. Klenke, too much direct eye contact can increase anxiety, especially in sensitive or emotionally charged conversations. Standing side to side is better, but what if this conversation happens via text? According to data scientist Karshad Kuti, emojis reduce answer depth by 27%, so please do not use them. Also in cognitive psychology, it's believed that if someone responds really quickly, they are actually giving off superficial answers. So you can tell them exactly this: "I understand if you don't want to tell me." This makes you seem caring, but it's also a psychological trick to make people more likely to open up. C. Interpretive stage. This is when you look deeper into what the event means. For example, you might ask, "Why don't you trust people anymore?" But in this stage, the sentences that start with why can lead to overthinking and make the person blame themselves. It's better to ask what and how questions. So instead of this, rephrase it into this. D. Decisional stage. This is the stage that concentrates on making future decisions. But there is a problem: the matching principle. In this kind of situation, people just want empathy, aka to have an emotional conversation. If you try to give them a piece of advice, you are actually moving the conversation from emotional to practical. This slowly ruins the interaction because they won't feel understood. So how can you give them advice without giving advice? Ask a question related to the future. Something like, "What do you want to do differently next time?" Or, "What do you need right now from yourself or others?" They will appreciate your support even though you didn't give them any actual advice. Now, according to the appraisal theory made by Richard Lazarus, every situation gives us a certain emotion based on our life goals and existential principles. So, number 3, 3. Existential. How can you ask deep existential questions? Well, let's take a look at the story of Norbert Wiener, one of the founding fathers of AI. During World War II, he had the mission to create the first anti-aircraft system. So he asked himself something like, how do I make a machine that can adapt using feedback just like a human? Now, before he could answer that question, another one struck him, a more existential one. If machines can learn and adapt using feedback loops like humans, does that mean that at some point they will no longer need us? The technique he used to ask this question is called inverted thinking. How can you use this? Flip the question in a negative way. Here are some examples. How do we extend human lifespan? Can be transformed into, what if people stopped wanting to live longer? How can we protect privacy? Can become, what if privacy no longer matters? But let's say you don't have an actual problem to discuss. You can still create deep questions by using the existential paradox. Take a look at this list of existential values. Let's say that the other person says that they value freedom and morality over everything. The catch is to find a situation where these values contradict each other, then create a question based on this situation. Something like, isn't granting absolute freedom to everyone immoral, since a lot of them will choose to do harm? So, as a quick recap, every personal question should be specific, engaging, concise, and avoid making these mistakes. For emotional questions, use the ORID method. For existential ones, either invert the question around or put two existential values in a situation where they contradict each other. But you can't get into a deep conversation without first going through small talk, so this video is just for you.